So today we're going to check out the DJI Osmo Pocket. So first of all, I wanted to test the gimbal part of the gimbal. So I went out and I tested this against the GoPro Camera Grip and also the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. I just wanted to see how it smoothed out the motion of me walking around, how it smoothed out panning. I also wanted to test out movement around objects and things like that. The phone in this test is the iPhone XS Max, and that is in the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. And the camera in the Camera Grip, well, that's a GoPro Hero 7. So yes, it doesn't supposedly need a gimbal, but this was all about a gimbal test. So if you've got a gimbal killer in a gimbal against a new gimbal, then surely that's the best damn gimbal test you're ever going to get. So you can see the footage both in daylight and when we actually got down into the valley area under the trees. Still crisp and clear from the Osmo. Again, the gimbal comparison, the way that it smooths its motion out, it's almost identical to the other two gimbals. Same again whether you're walking with it. The jolt of walking with the gimbal was also smoothed out, about the same in all the gimbals. So the Osmo Pocket is doing a really good job considering its size. Now the Osmo Pocket camera is obviously another part of this test, and that tested against the GoPro Hero 7. Again, a GoPro's got the fisheye look, but I just wanted to compare the highlights and shadows and how it dealt with that. As far as switching it on, you just press the right hand button there, just a couple of seconds it switches on, in a couple of seconds, that's easy. Same again to power it off, just pressing it once clicks between the modes of photo and video. Pressing it twice will recenter the camera. Pressing it 3 times will flick between selfie mode and forward facing mode. So the record button is record for a video or a time lapse or slow-mo, and it also takes the photo as well. You may notice this little adapter as well on there. You get 2 adapters. One is for an iPhone and one is USB-C. And basically that allows you to plug it into your phone. You do get a lot more features on the phone, which is slightly unfortunate. You can put it into something called Pro Mode, which is where you'll be able to control the ISO and shutter speed and all sorts of extra features in there as well when you come to take pictures, time lapses and video. If you disconnect your phone in Pro Mode, it'll stay in Pro Mode, but as soon as you try and change any of the modes, so say for example you were in Pro Mode and you were taking a photo, if you try to change to video mode, it'll ask you to exit Pro Mode before you can change anything. So it's got built-in microphones as well, both next to the power and record buttons there, and down the bottom near the charging port there's another microphone there. So you must make sure that when you hold it that you're not obstructing any of those microphones, and I think what they really want you to do is kind of pinch it between your finger and thumb like that and hold it, because they've made this lower area here of the front rubberized, quite grippy as well. The micro SD card slot on the side there, easy to access, supports up to 256 gig. It'll do HD 60 frames a second or 4K 60 frames a second. It has got a super fine mode or a fine mode on there. Flicking between the two, it's barely even noticeable in all fairness. One thing you do notice though is in superfine mode, this gets really hot really quickly, which also means the battery life really kind of like suffers as well. 4K 30 is perfectly okay, and if you wanted to do a bit of slow-mo action, 4K 60 and just slow it down by half, that's great too. However, talking about slow-mo, yes, it does do slow-mo. It says that it reduces the speed by 4, so you'd think, okay, 120 frames a second. It is only in HD, and it's not that pin sharp either. It's good, it's acceptable, but it's not fantastic. But then again, look at the tiny camera. I don't shoot a lot of slow-mo, and if I did, I'd be quite happy to use a few seconds worth of the clips that this can produce. It's a 1-inch screen. It does a really good job both in bright sunlight and in nighttime. The brightness level I've never had to use on full, but it's a good screen for a 1-inch screen. The quality isn't obviously fantastic, but you get the idea of what you're seeing in frame. You get an option with it being touchscreen to go through a few settings on there, so you can actually change the modes between photo, video, time-lapse, slow-mo and pano, and each of those modes, when you swipe further, you get an option. So like in pano, you can have a 180 or a 3x3. In video mode, you can get to choose between HD and 4K and 60 frames and 30. Again, you get more options on the app using the other modes. You can use this for motion time-lapse. If you use the unit on its own, you can only set a start and end point. Whereas if you use the app, you get 4 points. So if you do it on the actual device, if you're setting up a motion time lapse, you just basically move the head around while you're setting your start and end points and enter them in as you would that way. Battery life, you're talking around about 2 hours roughly, and that's HD. I've been using it on and off, and I've got a full day shoot out of one charge, and that was using 4K at 30 frames a second. Again, with some photos on there, time lapses and everything else. I got a full day's shooting out of it, but I guess in total that may have been less than around about 90 minutes of actual powered on time recording something. It took around about 1 hour 20 minutes to recharge it when it got down to 10%. You can charge it while you're using it. You can take a power bank with you and charge it when you're using it. You can even charge it when it's in the little pouch as well. So when it's switched off, there's a hole through the bottom of the pouch, so you can charge it there as well. So this little clamp, once you clamp it around the side there, obviously don't do it too tight, but it does give it a weight at the bottom to make sure it doesn't fall over. It's also got a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch mount at the back, which means you can mount it to a tripod as well. So these are quite good, quite handy for that. If you only want to use it on its own, like I say, if you want to use it with a phone, I suggest one of these phone grips mounted to, sort of like an average little tripod base. They work fine. And I use my little selfie pole in the middle to raise its height. So I've got all those kind of things that I use for it. But that's what I've been going with now, because most of the accessories aren't available yet from DJI. So obviously one of the main things about this is that it's good for vlogging, if you like, because little camera, quite inconspicuous. You can walk around with it. It face tracks you automatically, so no matter where you move the camera, what angle you move the camera at, it's always kind of looking at you. Walking down the street now with nothing but the street lamp to light me, with a bit of noise in the background. How does that sound? Feels a bit weird to talk to a camera at night. The quality of the video I think is fantastic. The quality of the pictures is fantastic as well, both in daylight and at night time, in low light conditions and complete night time. I would use the single point focus, so AFS. That I found to be more accurate than the AFC, the continual checking for focus. I found it hunted a lot when you did it that way. I also tried some nighttime photography, basically in 2 modes. So the first one was a motion time lapse with motion blur, light trails, and for that I went into manual mode. So I plugged it into my phone, put the phone on the tripod, this plugged into the side, and then tried some motorway car trails and things like that with photos, and I did that handheld, and some of those came out great, some of them didn't so much. Again, if I was on a tripod, that would obviously work far better, but just to get an idea of how stable this is to be able to take those pictures at night time like that. One thing I would say, if you use it in just camera mode and you go out and you take some panos, it can only stitch those together when you plug it back in the phone. So if you're after the panos, plug it back in the phone, start up the DJI Mimo app, and then it'll, if you go into preview, it'll start to import those. The app's quite good actually. Anything that you've taken video or photo or pano or anything like that, as soon as you plug it into the app, it starts to auto synchronize, so it takes all the content from here and dumps it on your phone so you can start to use it straight away, which I found is pretty good because it means you can start to use it on social media straight away. The only thing that won't be on the micro SD card is anything that on the pano side that's been stitched together, the 3x3 or the 4 in a line for the 180. You know, when you shut it down, it puts it into a set configuration that just slots straight away into its little pouch hard case. I just wanted to do a comparison now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch this on. It does make a bit of a clunking noise when you switch it on and off. 1, 2, 3. I'm in selfie mode, and I just want to do a comparison just next to the GH5 so you can see what sort of quality difference there are between the two. So obviously you are the DJI Osmo Pocket and you're the GH5. The GH5's $2,000 sat right there with one lens, and the GH5, this one's £329. So the GH5 is probably better audio, but yeah, I think that's pretty good. Personally, I can't see myself wanting to use a GoPro anymore when I'm out and about doing vlogging. I'd want to use this thing. It is that good. Everywhere where I would want to take a camera and video something when I'm out and about doing something like B-roll for tech reviews, or whether I'm doing something with my travel channel and I want to actually record wherever it is I'm going. So to use it as like a vlogging camera and B-roll camera, I'm going to use this. I have been using my mobile phone. I think this is far better. It's certainly going to give much more stable footage, easier to use as well, and easier to get in and out of places. So yeah, absolutely love this little guy, and keep an eye out for the next few videos I'll be doing, which will be dedicated to this and some of the lovely little features for it, and just basically some hints and tips about how to get the most out of it for low light photography, sort of light trails, that kind of thing, as well as some really clever little uses for B-roll and things like that. So thanks for watching my video today. You take care, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.